Suicide bombers attack a market in northeastern Nigeria, killing at least 12 people and wounding dozens more. Life-changing healthcare comes to Cameroon by boat. And could this machine put sniffer dogs out of business? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Tonight, we begin in West Africa, where Nigerian police say suicide bombers, including females, attacked a market in the northeastern city of Maiduguri, killing at least 12 people and wounding dozens more. Wednesday's explosions struck the Muna Garage area of the Borno state capital, a market used largely by internally displaced persons from a nearby camp. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but the militant group Boko Haram frequently carries out attacks in the area, and they have been known to use female suicide bombers. In a separate incident Wednesday, an American and a Canadian reportedly were kidnapped in Kaduna State while traveling to Abuja. The foreigners were ambushed by unknown gunmen. 2 police officers were killed in the exchange. Now, the United Nations is warning that the humanitarian situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo has reached a breaking point after 3 years of decline. It says conditions worsened in 2017 with the conflict in the Kasai region, and children and the most vulnerable in the province could die if huge caps in funding are not breached. Fighting erupted in 2016 between government forces and local militia in the Kasai region, leaving 400,000 children at risk of starving to death. The International Organization for Migration, or IOM, says that of its $75 million appeal for aid in the DRC, it has received only $3.5 million. More than 13 million people will need assistance this year. Now, in Zimbabwe, President Emmerson Mnangagwa says the country will hold elections in 4 to 5 months, the first since the oust of longtime ruler Robert Mugabe. Mnangagwa is reported to have made the pledge Wednesday during an unofficial trip to neighboring Mozambique. The state-owned Herald newspaper says Mnangagwa pledged to ensure free and fair elections to ensure Zimbabwe engages the world as a qualified democratic state. Elections had been expected to be held in either July or August. Mnangagwa replaced 93-year-old Robert Mugabe, who ruled Zimbabwe for 37 years before he was forced to resign under pressure last November by the military. Before becoming U.S. president, Donald Trump railed against U.S. wars overseas, saying it was better to spend money at home than, in his words, wasted overseas. But as VOA's Bill Gallo reports, the president has at times struggled to carry out what he calls his America First approach to the world during his first year as commander-in-chief.
When I become president, the era of nation building will be brought to a very swift and decisive end.
As a candidate, Donald Trump promised a radically different approach to foreign intervention.
We've spent now $6 trillion in the Middle East. We could have rebuilt our country twice.
For years, Trump criticized U.S. wars, arguing they were a waste of lives and money. But how has Trump handled those conflicts during his first year as president? The short answer? There hasn't been a drastic change. In fact, Trump has shown he's anything but reluctant to use U.S. force overseas. Since Trump took office, the U.S. military presence in the Middle East and North Africa has jumped by a third. The U.S. is also carrying out more bombings. Last year, the U.S. dropped 30% more bombs on Iraq and Syria than in 2016, and 3 times as many on Afghanistan. Drone and other airstrikes also continued to expand in 2017, especially in Pakistan, Libya, Yemen, and Somalia.
Strikes in Yemen have tripled and doubled in Somalia this year compared to last. So the uptick in strikes in these countries was largely a part of parts of both countries being declared areas of active hostilities, which essentially means the US could launch strikes with fewer constraints.
Add it all up, and it's hard to see Trump's foreign policy as any less interventionist than his predecessors. If anything, it's just a little more hawkish, says Christopher Preble with the Cato Institute.
He's largely continued what he inherited, with some additional increment of the use of force. So I think in the case of Afghanistan, for example, he, even though he had in earlier years railed against the war, he expanded the war that he inherited.
Trump isn't the only president who's struggled to fulfill his campaign promises on foreign policy. Barack Obama, for instance, promised to bring home troops from Iraq. And he did, before eventually sending them back to fight Islamic State.
I am here tonight to lay out our path forward in Afghanistan.
It's a reminder that presidential candidates promise a lot when it comes to foreign policy, but they can't always deliver. Bill Gallo, VOA News, Washington.
Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, a hospital ship provides life-saving services to Cameroon. Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
In Finland, saunas are an obsession. And now guests at the Apuka resort can have the sauna come to them wherever they are. It's a wood-burning sauna on skis towed by a snowmobile, says resort director Mika Sovari.
In the middle of the wilderness or on the frozen lake or in front of our cabins or holiday homes or actually anywhere.
There are some 6 million people in Finland and over 2 million saunas, says tourism official Sanna Tarsana.
I think sauna is a cornerstone of our culture. In comparison to other countries, they have the dinner table where they meet, but for us it's definitely the sauna.
The sauna on skis holds 2 people and sessions are sold in 45-minute blocks. But the traditional finishing roll in the snow, that's free. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Well, it's time now for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Madu to tell us about a link between breastfeeding and diabetes. Lino.
That's right, Vincent. Researchers say a new study conducted in the United States has revealed that longer periods of breastfeeding are associated with a lower risk of diabetes even decades later. Researchers examined data on over 1,200 mothers without diabetes at the outset. Over the next 25 years, 182 women developed diabetes compared to women who didn't breastfeed at all. Mothers who nursed babies for at least 6 months were 48% less likely to develop diabetes. All of the women had at least one baby during the study, and most of them did breastfeed. A diabetes diagnosis after pregnancy was much more common among women who developed a version of the condition known as gestational diabetes while they were pregnant, according to the report in JAMA Internal Medicine. A hospital charity ship is offering free life-changing surgical services for the first time in Cameroon. The goal of the ship's staff is to help improve healthcare services in the country through training and mentoring. And we're having a little technical difficulties with the report. We may have it soon, but joining us live now via Skype from Garden Valley, Texas, is Dr. Peter Lance, International Chief Medical Officer for Mercy Ships. Dr. Lance, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Listen, we were going to show a report about the work of Mercy Ships presently in Cameroon. Nevertheless, can you tell us a little bit about the type of services that Mercy Ships and the Africa Ships specifically offer on board?
Sure. The Africa Mercy is the world's largest non-governmental hospital ship, and it provides specialized surgical care, life-changing operations for those who don't have access. So during our 10-month visit to Cameroon, we'll do about 3,500 surgeries across such surgical disciplines as maxillofacial surgery, cleft lip, cleft palate repairs, jaw tumors, cataract removal to restore sight for those who can't see, pediatric orthopedic procedures, things like correcting club foot, bow legs, plastic reconstructive surgery, things like burn, contracture, release to restore function, general surgery, things like enlarged thyroids, hernias, and soft tissue tumors, and then a program in women's health to repair obstetric fistula.
That's quite a bit of services there that you're offering on board of a ship. So tell us, is all care provided on board of the ship, or are there other cares that you take inland?
So the surgery is all provided on the ship. We do have some functions ashore, including a dental clinic, housing for patients from the interior of the country for where they can stay both preoperatively and postoperatively, as well as other smaller functions, things like assisting with palliative care for patients who are close to the end of life.
How do you choose a country to visit? What is the process?
So we have been working exclusively in Africa since the mid-1990s. We look to work in the countries that have the greatest need, and we go places in partnership where we've been invited by the government. So we work with the government, obviously during our 10-month stay. That's where we end up coming.
And what is the role of the government besides perhaps spreading the word that the ship is coming? Do they have other contributions in this process?
Yeah, we ask, they'll provide the space to dock the ship free of charge. They'll provide water for the ship. And depending on the country, there may be other services they provide, including helping transport patients from the interior, to obviously providing security and other things that are required during a long visit like that.
Now, the Africa Mercy has been in operation since 2007. After more than 10 years, what are some of its successes and challenges?
So the biggest challenge is just the size of the need, right? There's over 5 billion patients worldwide who don't have access to safe, timely surgery. During the 10 years, the Africa Mercy's performed over 30,000 operations, and we've participated in the training of many thousands of healthcare professionals to sort of strengthen the healthcare systems that we work in.
So tell us a little more about capacity building. What type of training do you offer quickly?
So we try to strengthen the healthcare delivery systems by offering one-on-one mentoring to healthcare professionals who work side by side with our practitioners aboard the ship. In addition, we conduct a number of internationally recognized courses on shore and in various hospitals, provide training in biomedical engineering. And we do some infrastructure work to help improve the physical plan of clinics and hospitals.
And where is the Africa Mercy going next?
She'll be going to Guinea in August of this year.
Fantastic. Dr. Peter Lance, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Great. And that was Dr. Peter Lance. He is an International Chief Medical Officer for Mercy Ships. And now here's more on the Africa Mercy, who is currently operating in Cameroon. Take a listen. Sally and his mother, Harira, traveled over 700 kilometers to see a doctor at a free medical camp in Cameroon's port city, Douala. Sally is one of over 3,000 patients who will be receiving surgical treatment on board the Africa Mercy ship, one of the world's largest charity floating hospitals. The 7-year-old was born with a cleft lip.
Whenever Sally goes to school, his friends come around and make fun of him. It hurts him because they keep calling him the boy with an exposed tooth. He is so conscious about it that he covers his mouth with his hands when walking.
The Africa Mercy is on a mission to provide free health care and services to those who lack access. The charity hospital is run by international faith-based group Mercy Ships. Equipped with 5 operating theaters, doctors are able to carry out 7,000 surgical procedures a year, including cataract removals, cleft lip and palate reconstruction, as well as orthopedic operations. Corny Blom is the Africa Mercy Hospital director.
We're looking for those patients that have very severe deformities and which are very disfiguring, like in the maxillofacial surgical realm. We think about those big orofacial tumors that can be very life-threatening and that are very complex surgeries that require very specialized knowledge and competency from surgeons. So that's a big one. But it's also very much need-driven, like the obstetric fistula. In Cameroon, estimates say there are between 20,000 and 30,000 ladies that require that surgery. So of course, we want to treat as many as we can.
In Cameroon, observers say good medical care is often too far away, too expensive, or simply unavailable. The medical professionals include volunteer doctors, nurses, surgeons, and other crew who will spend 10 months in Douala providing free healthcare services. The Mercy Ships program also includes training courses for local doctors and other healthcare workers, as well as mentorship programs.
In the hospital I work at in Douala, we only had a few cases of fistula, so I have gained a lot of experience on the ship, such as caring for patients who have fistula and counseling them.
Mercy Ships has treated over 2.56 million people since it was created in 1978. And that's all for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Thanks a lot, Lenore. And remember to join Lenore every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54 for the latest health news from Africa. Now we'll go back to the DRC story. We mentioned that there is a warning from the United Nations that millions face death, in fact, if there is no funding as soon as possible. Want to talk more about that? We go to Geneva, where Joel Millman of the International Organization of Migration is joining us live via phone. Joel, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
Now, this, this warning sounds really scary. We're talking about millions of people. In fact, what really happened? What happened that we didn't get that kind of money?
Well, there's a lot of crises in the world right now, but our chief of mission, Jean-Philippe Chauzy, was in Geneva all this week. He was saying that the humanitarian situation in the DRC is at a breaking point, as is our capacity to respond due to extremely limited funding. He was saying that, the stories of the Congolese have already been forced from their homes are telling us are absolutely bone-chilling. They've been through so much already with torture, rape, murder. And, it's so hard to sit by idly as they suffer in silence. IOM is appealing for $75 million to urgently meet the growing needs. But, like we say, there's a lot of crises in the world that attracting people's attention.
So in this particular situation, this pledges, or at least the appeal that was made, was of course to governments across the world. Up to this point, only $3.2 or so million raised. The IOM is launching another appeal today, or in fact the UN. What hope is there that some of these countries would come in so quickly to rescue the situation?
Oh, I think it's the growing appreciation of just the dire crisis. Funding so far has been received from the EU, the U.S., Japan, Sweden. So we have we're adding up to around $6 or $7 million, but the main obstacle remains funding. It's a very complex. It's a very big country. We have issues to deal with, everything from protection of gender, to securing the supply chain of mining, because mining is funding a lot of the conflict, the fight, the scramble for the mineral wealth of a country like the Congo. So, you don't have many places that are this big and this populated that demand this kind of attention. Not that the other crises around the world aren't equally dire. It's just this is a really complex one.
And of course, what makes it even complex is that there's this ongoing conflict, which has yet to be addressed, or at least to end, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there isn't really a humanitarian solution to a humanitarian crisis. There's only a political solution. But that doesn't mean we can afford to stop and wait. We just have to do everything we can for as long as we can, for as long as it takes.
Well, Joel Millman there talking to us by phone from Geneva. I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We're the International Organization for Migration, by the way.
Okay. Joel, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah, so here's a question I wanted to ask. From what you hear coming from Jean-Philippe, in terms of the spread of this issue, of the problem, where are the populations concentrated in? Are they particularly those who have been displaced or even people who are within their home areas?
Well, the highest levels of displacement are in Kasai and North Kivu and Tanganyika. This is a vast land. We've got some big cities. We have missions all over the Congo, and all of them are stretched almost to the breaking point.
Okay, so we know there is that appeal by OCHA. There was a kind of a response that is being launched today in Kinshasa. Who is expected to come there? Who is likely to listen to this appeal on behalf of the 13 or so million people?
I'm afraid I can't speak for what OCHA is doing today. I just don't have those details.
Okay. But nevertheless, as the IOM, one of the interested parties, you are still continuing to call on the countries worldwide to come into the rescue of these many, many millions of people in the DRC.
That is correct.
Okay.
We are.
And of course, the timeline. Do you have a timeline by which way you feel like if there is no money by that time, we could start seeing people die?
Well, we're seeing people dying. There's no doubt of that. We are not setting a timeline. We want people to know it's urgent and it's continuous.
Okay. So anyway, we hope for the best. We hope people can step up to the plate. Joel, once again, thank you very much for joining us on short notice from Geneva.
Okay, anytime. Thank you.
All right. That's Joel Millman of the International Organization of Migration speaking to us via phone from Geneva, Switzerland. Well, and it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the high-tech device that could put sniffer dogs out of business. We'll be right back.
And vision for our two countries and compared notes.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Now, reducing fashion waste is one of the main topics at this year's Green and Ethical Showroom and Fashion Tech event in Berlin. Among the items on display, handbags made out of pineapple leaves. If you throw away the bag, it would degrade and slowly disappear. It is fully biodegradable. A Swedish designer showing modular clothes that can be modified over the years to change with consumers' changing taste. Patterns can be added, colors can be attached or removed. The idea is to make consumers keep their clothes longer. Well, next up, autonomous vehicles are expected to become a commercial reality this year. That's according to the 2018 North American International Auto Show. There are various examples of autonomous driving innovations at the event. An autonomous truck from a Stockholm-based company is attracting lots of visitors since driverless operation means more space for goods to be transported. The U.S. General Motors is hoping to launch a fleet of robocabs next year, but not everyone is convinced. Some warn that the pace is too fast and the safety issues cannot be swept aside. Well, and finally, the headwinds of Brexit might still be uncertain, but luxury yacht makers are boasting of record order books rolling into 2020, partly driven by the resurgence of the North American market. The U.S. accounts for nearly 65% of boats sold worldwide. With confidence once again back in the market, would-be yacht owners are being forced to buy new because of the scarcity of second-hand boats. UK marine exports grew by 4.7% in 2017, with a weak pound helping drive sales from international buyers. And that's what's trending today. Now, dogs are often used in airports to sniff out explosives or illegal drugs. But a new high-tech machine has been developed that can sniff the air, so bag handlers and bomb experts can check luggage and containers without touching them. VOA's Deborah Block has more.
Sniffer dogs may no longer be needed for security in the near future if the machine called CrimTrack takes their place. The device works by sniffing the air and can detect substances used to make explosives and illegal drugs in less than 2 minutes. It was developed by researchers at the Technical University of Denmark.
We put in a small screen here, so if there's a human operating it, then he can just push the button, and then the alert would come back.
This is how it works.
There's a wireless communication. It operates on a battery here, so you can have several of them. And the data will be, in the future, transferred directly to what we call the monitoring station, which could be a computer, could be a laptop, or maybe just an iPad or similar. So we can have several of them operating simultaneously if you want to search an area.
CrimTrack also contains a chip with dyes that change colors when specific chemicals are discovered.
We take the chip and mount it into what we call a flow chamber, which is basically just a small chamber containing the microcolorimetric chip. Then we mount it on our device, and once we start the program, the equipment will take several images of the colorimetric chip over time during the exposure of the chemical.
The researchers hope to have the technology on the market by 2020. Deborah Block, VOA News.
Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com for more news. Tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. So, you know what happy is, and medium comes between small and large.
To find a happy medium.
So, is this idiom about feeling kind of happy?
How is it going with your neighbor? Is he still complaining about your playing the trombone at night?
He was, but it's fine now.
How did you guys work it out?